SLT Fibre and experience the power of fibre technology. Sri Lanka's only super fast internet connection. SLT Fibre. Call 1212 now.
Making headlines tonight. Who's at fault? PSC holds the country's top brass accountable for the Easter attacks.
Ministers, Prime Minister and also the State Minister of Defence also has been held responsible.
And the President as Minister of Defence and one who held the law and order portfolio under him.
It's not me. Prime Minister washes his hands off the Mattala Airport paddy storage affair. The campaign trail, presidential election race continues, with Gotabaya insisting that nothing is impossible, while Sajid promises to be a humble leader. New low, Sri Lanka's growth rate downgraded further. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday, the 23rd of October, 2019.
From AdaDerana. This is AdaDerana First at 9.
Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා ෆෑනස් වැඩි වෙලා.
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ ෆෑනස් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක වැඩි කරගන්න. Fair and Lovely men anti marks cream.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And for the very latest tonight, joining you, I'm Indivari Amuatha. On to your top stories. Member of the Parliamentary Select Committee which probed the Easter Sunday attacks, Dr. Jayampathi Wickremesinghe, tabled the final report of the committee in Parliament today. The report highlights the failure of state intelligence services as the main reason behind the inability to prevent the attacks. The report also holds several high-profile members of the government, including the President, Prime Minister, as well as top-level security officials responsible. Chair of the committee, Deputy Speaker Ananda Kumarasiri, said that the report will be handed over to the Attorney General upon instructions of Speaker Karu Jayasuriya in the coming days.
The 274-paged final report of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Easter attacks was compiled after the Commission recorded evidence from 55 persons during 24 sittings. The key findings of the committee states that intelligence information related to the attacks was first received by the Director of the State Intelligence Services on the 4th of April 2019, but there were delays from his end to share it with relevant intelligence and security personnel. The PSC notes that whilst the greatest responsibility remains with the Director SIS, others too failed in their duties. It says that within the security and intelligence apparatus, the Secretary of the Ministry of Defence, the IGP, Chief of National Intelligence and the Directorate of Military Intelligence had failed in their responsibilities. The committee says that these officials, whilst being informed of the intelligence information prior to the Easter Sunday attacks, failed to take necessary steps to mitigate or prevent it. The PSC says that further investigations will be needed to understand whether those with vested interests did not act on intelligence so as to create chaos and instill fear and uncertainty in the country in the lead up to the presidential election to be held in later this year. In addition, the PSC observes that the President failed in numerous occasions to give leadership and also actively undermined government and systems, including having ad hoc National Security Council meetings and leaving out key individuals from meetings. Several others listed in the report as having failed in the duties include the Prime Minister and State Minister of Defence, as well as the Attorney General's Department. The report by the Parliamentary Select Committee also includes a comprehensive section of its recommendations. These recommendations suggest immediate attention in the form of essential reforms in the security and intelligence sector, establishment of an enhanced financial supervisory mechanism, controlling and monitoring the rise of religious extremism, reforming the Attorney General's Department, need for action on Wahhabism, media reporting, fake news and other areas of concern, holding politicians accountable, as well as reforming the educational sector to counter growing extremism. Some of the key recommendations highlight the need for a strengthened National Security Council with a secretariat comprising of experienced staff to support its work. The PSC also recommends that a new position should be created in the executive branch called the National Security Advisor, who should be a person with the relevant expertise in intelligence and security issues and be able to oversee the work of the NSC Secretariat and keep the President and the government abreast of security issues. The proposed National Security Advisor will be responsible for the Minister of Defence with the mandate to call meetings on a regular basis. The committee highlights the need to establish an enhanced financial supervisory mechanism to detect, report and action suspicious transactions so as to prevent terrorist financing activities routed through the financial system of Sri Lanka going unnoticed. The investigations carried out subsequent to the Easter Sunday bomb attacks had established that the lack of proper checks and balances in the financial system helped organizations to carry out financial transactions unnoticed or undetected, thereby facilitating terrorist activities in Sri Lanka. The PSC goes on to insist that state authorities must take immediate action to address the dissemination of misinformation and spread of hate speech inciting violence, including steps to hold alleged perpetrators accountable. The report further suggests that individuals such as religious leaders, politicians and public figures must refrain from using messages of intolerance or expressions which may incite violence between communities. It also calls on the government to impose strict disciplinary action against journalists and media personnel who do not adhere to codes of ethics and publish dramatized news that can result in communal disharmony.
Meanwhile, several members of the Parliamentary Select Committee held a special media briefing after the report was tabled in Parliament, where they responded to some of the pressing questions raised by journalists.
In April 2018, SIS wanted the IGP to instruct the TID not to interfere with their work in Kathankudi with this group. If you do that, then the agency that wanted the other agency to back off takes its sole responsibility. And it is the SIS which, even closest to the incident, that received intelligence information from a friendly country.
For some unknown reason, the office of the CNI was made virtually redundant. Chief of National Intelligence was ordinarily expected to coordinate between intelligence agencies and the executing bodies, the police. We heard evidence that there was some kind of a reluctance or inhibition in sharing information.
You know, you locked up a former IGP, you locked up a former Secretary to the Ministry of Defence, but the attention seems to be on the SIS.
We are not laying the blame on one agency alone. What we are saying is that perhaps they are mostly to be held responsible. But apart from that, there is a section on culpability. We have found many people responsible.
Ministers, Prime Minister and also the State Minister of Defence also has been held responsible.
And the President as Minister of Defence and one who held the law and order portfolio under him. With regard to the Eastern Province political patronage, we have named former Governor of the Eastern Province, Mr. Hizbullah. We have named a few others who have made irresponsible statements from time to time.
We have not exclusively concentrated on Islamic extremism alone.
Yeah.
Even other religious extremism also have been dealt with. And the fact that one extremism begets the other is also noted.
Who is the most culpable official in all this, in all the findings?
It's difficult to say that, but from what the chairman said, the Director SIS, the IGP, the Defence Secretary, CNI have all been named.
Is it going to be debated in Parliament?
The next Parliament sitting day is 7th of November. I do not know whether maybe government will have important issues that has to be taken up. But it depends on the party leader's decision. Yes.
The moment we submit a report, it becomes the property of the House. Then it is up to the Speaker, upon a resolution of Parliament, to refer it to the Attorney General for further action.
Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara and former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando were remanded until the 6th of November when the case against the duo was taken up before the Colombo Additional Magistrate Priyantha Liyanage today. On the 9th of October, the Colombo High Court dismissed the previous order issued by the Colombo Magistrates Court granting bail to the IGP and former Defence Secretary who were charged with failing to prevent the Easter Sunday terror attacks. The two defendants were subsequently remanded. Deputy Solicitor General Dileepa Pires told court that the bank accounts of the suspects in the case are being probed further and that a large number of statements pertaining to the incident have already been recorded. He requested the additional magistrate to remove the lawsuit from the Colombo Chief Magistrate and direct it to another magistrate. In response, the additional magistrate stated that the proceedings of the case will continue before Chief Magistrate Lanka Jayaratne. He also ordered to further remand the two defendants until the 6th of November and called for a report on the progress of the ongoing investigation. Also in our headline-making news tonight, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe today brushed off any suggestion of storing paddy at the Maithripalapalapala International Airport amounting to misappropriation of state property. Giving a statement before the Presidential Commission probing corruption and fraud in state institutions, the Premier placed the responsibility of the move squarely on the shoulders of officials who approved the action. That, however, was despite the fact a directive originating under a letterhead of the PM's office.
The Presidential Commission of Inquiry on allegations of corruption and fraud in state institutions recorded a statement from Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe this morning. It relates to an incident of storing paddy at the Maithripalapalapala International Airport back in 2015. The Commission drew the attention of the Prime Minister to a letter sent by PM's advisor Charita Ratwata to then Chairman of the Sri Lankan Airlines Ajit Dias, conveying that a decision has been taken to store paddy at the Maithripalapalapala Airport and informing that the decision be facilitated. With regards to that letter, the PM said that he never issued instructions to store paddy at the Maithripalapalapala Airport. However, he never objected to it either upon learning the move. When asked whether storage of paddy at the airport would damage the majestic reputation of the facility, Prime Minister Wickremesinghe said that the Maithripalapalapala International Airport never had a majestic reputation. The Commission put to the PM whether a move such as storage of paddy would prevent the airport from attaining a good reputation, to which the PM said looking into the reputation of the airport is not the responsibility of the Commission. The PM went on to say that if the Commission opens up a political debate, he would leave. The Commission then noted that when the decision to store paddy at the airport was taken, there was 8,100 metric tons of storage capacity at the Paddy Marketing Board's Hambantota storage facility. With that being the case, the Commission asked the PM whether storing paddy at the Maithripalapalapala International Airport doesn't amount to misappropriation of state property. The Prime Minister responded saying paddy storage done with the consent of the airport does not amount to misappropriation of state property. He added that if there was a possibility where the airport could have sustained damages owing to paddy storage, the relevant authorities could have prevented the move. Quoting former chairman of Sri Lankan Airlines Ajit Dias, the Commission said that paddy storage at the airport was allowed since it was a decision taken by the PM's office and communicated to the Sri Lankan chairman. Prime Minister Wickremesinghe then remarked that although such a transaction had taken place under the letterhead of the Prime Minister's office, it was not a directive issued by himself.
As the campaign trail continues, we'll bring you details of the presidential candidates after the short break. Welcome back. SLPP presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa promised to secure the country in preparation for an era of steady economic progress. The presidential hopeful expressed these views in Kaduwela. In addition, there were several other campaign rallies organized in other areas as well.
SLPP presidential hopeful Gotabaya Rajapaksa's first election campaign rally in the Colombo district kicked off in Kaduwela yesterday.
අපි රාජ්‍ය ආයතන ලාභ ලබන ආයතන බවට පත් කරන්නට ඕනි.
We must ensure that state institutions become profit-making entities. We can't sell them off to foreigners. There must be a secure country to attract both local and foreign investments. We need a proper financial plan for the purpose. If you follow through on your obligation, I promise to give you a secure, prosperous and a proud nation.
අභිමානවත් දේශයක් තමුන්නාන්සේලාට ලබා දෙනවයි කියන පොරොන්දුව ලබා දෙමින් තමුන්නාන්සේලාට ජය වේවා.
Meanwhile, another campaign rally was held in Talatoya under the patronage of presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa as well as opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa.
යුද්ධේ ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා කවුරුත් කිව්වේ නැහැ. මට නම් කවුරුත් කිව්වේ නැහැ. හැමෝම කිව්වේ කරන්න බෑයි කියලා.
Nobody told me that it was possible to end the war, but I believed that we could do it. And in the development process, who knew such major expressway projects could have been achieved? These are things we can do. We must ensure the revival of all sectors. We should train our farmers to be entrepreneurs. These are practical targets which can be realized.
මේව කරන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රායෝගික වැඩ. ඇයට නිදි මරන්න නෙවෙයි ජනාධිපතිවරයෙක් ඕන.
We don't need a president who stays awake at night. We want one to govern the country. We ended the war and there were no bomb blasts for 10 years, but all those efforts became futile with Zahran's Easter attacks. All communities, especially the Muslims, were affected by them. The government must be held responsible because they did not make the public aware of the threat of an attack, even with prior knowledge.
ජනතාවට ඒක කිව්වේ නැති එක.
Another rally of the SLPP presidential candidate was held in Maithripalapalapala today.
We came to an agreement with parliamentarian Arumugam Thondaman. Main goal of these discussions was to support the estate workers and their families. We also spoke about a program to provide quality education for the children of these families. We also agreed to increase the daily wage of estate workers to 1,000 rupees.
රුපියල් 1000ක් ලබා දෙන්නට අපි එතුමත් සමග එකඟ වුණා. දැන් අධිවේගී මාර්ගය නතර කළා.
They have stopped the expressway project after constructions here and there in and around Kurunegala. Now it only leads to Dambulla. We, however, promise you that the expressway will come to Kandy. Members of the UNP started to join us because of the incompetency of this government and distrust towards it.
මේ ආණ්ඩුව කෙරෙහි තියෙන අවිශ්වාසය හා මේ ආණ්ඩුවට වැඩබැරි ගතිය.
New Democratic Front's presidential candidate, Minister Sajid Premadasa, says that he promises to become an exemplary leader who will not take salary, perks or benefits entitled to the country's top position. Meanwhile, an election complaint was filed against a meeting organised by the Ministry of Health, which was held under the auspices of the presidential candidate in Colombo today.
A meeting with government school teaching instructors was held at the Vihar Mahadevi Open Air Theatre in Colombo today under the auspices of the New Democratic Front's presidential candidate Sajid Premadasa. The Election Commission, however, received a complaint saying that this was a political meeting and therefore in violation of election laws. As a result, a group of officials from the Election Commission inspected the gathering. Education Minister Viraj Karivasam, who arrived at the meeting but due to the lack of attendance turned away, said the meeting was held without the permission of the Education Ministry. When AdaDerana contacted the Election Commission with regard to the matter, a senior officer at the Election Commission said that legal action will be taken against government officers who attended the meeting without leave. Despite the low attendance, presidential hopeful Sajid Premadasa attended the event. Meanwhile, a public rally was organised by the New Democratic Front under the auspices of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and his presidential candidate in Malabar this evening.
If we make Sajid Premadasa our president and carry forward the policies that are in place, I assure you that we will increase our foreign investment tenfold. If you are going to teach someone a lesson, make sure you are worthy of doing so. I wish to tell you all that as president I will lead by example. I will not take any salary, perks or benefits entitled to a president. I will not use our taxpayers' money to live a life of luxury.
Another public rally was organised in North Tandia today.
As your servant and as a president who is humble, I promise you that I will usher in an era where our economy will be able to give the people a comfortable life.
සැනසille ජීවත් වීමේ යුගය අපි ආරම්භ කරනවා කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
State Minister for Foreign Affairs Vasantha Senanayake has issued an ultimatum to New Democratic Front presidential candidate Sajid Premadasa, seeking a response to 4 questions outlined in a letter sent on the 20th of October. The State Minister stated that failure to address his concerns will result in his withdrawal from party activities in support of the presidential candidate.
State Minister for Foreign Affairs Vasantha Senanayake today outlined a list of concerns regarding the campaign and future cabinet of New Democratic Front presidential candidate Sajid Premadasa. At a special media briefing, the State Minister revealed that a letter requesting a response to the queries has been sent to the presidential candidate, but no response has been received so far. State Minister Senanayake in his letter had requested for satisfactory answers, threatening to withdraw from all party organised activities in support of the New Democratic Front campaign if none are forthcoming. Among the questions raised are, would Ranil Wickremesinghe be the Prime Minister in a Sajid Premadasa presidency? It is followed by, will Minister Ravi Karunanayake be a Cabinet Minister if he is elected? Will Minister Rishad Badudin enjoy a cabinet portfolio is also among the questions. Last but not least is the question, given the recent media reports regarding connections between Minister Rauf Hakim and Easter bombers, will he play an important role in the campaign?
I have my personal fears. I have no issues with Sajid Premadasa's candidacy. We have noticed that a group of individuals who are totally opposed to his nomination, not Suju Senasinghe or Ajit Pera, who were with him from the start, but the group that tried to destroy him, are the ones at the forefront of his campaign. The other issue is Premadasa's silence on his choice of Prime Minister. That is an issue to me and to the people in my electorate. According to the new constitutional amendments, it will be the Prime Minister who will be choosing the cabinet. People also keep asking me if it will be the same corrupt, inefficient group that will make up the new cabinet with bank robbers and highway robbers among them. We worked for good governance before without questioning anything, and it went from good governance to a poisoned governance. We cannot mislead the people anymore, and that is why I am asking these questions beforehand. I do have my fears and suspicions because he hasn't as yet revealed who will be in his cabinet. His second most vocal opponent is now tipped to be his Minister of Defence. I am now wondering where this is going. That is what we want to know as well. I told him to use the elephant symbol. The other parties in the coalition had apparently requested an alternate symbol, so the swan symbol was chosen. However, when I queried on the reasons for the objections to the elephant symbol, they denied having any objections to it.
Taking you to business news, prolonged uncertainty weighs on Asia's economy as IMF downgraded Sri Lanka's growth rate in 2019 to 2.7%, down by 0.8% from an earlier projection of 3.5% made in April. The IMF's latest economic assessment for Asia and the Pacific, released yesterday, highlights rising downside risks to growth in the context of a synchronized global slowdown. The report, however, goes on to show that Sri Lanka's economy is expected to rebound in 2020, forecasting a 3.5% growth. GDP growth rate for neighboring South Asian countries like India and Bangladesh too have been downgraded this year. The report noted that growth in Asia softened in the first half of 2019, driven by a pronounced decline in fixed investment and exports. Director of IMF's Asia and Pacific Department Shang Yong Ri said, quote, "The near-term outlook points to continued slowdown of regional growth driven by global policy uncertainty and slowing growth in China and India," unquote. He also advised that with Asia's conjecture, or rather at a delicate moment, policies will need to be supportive while safeguarding financial stability. The report finds that Asia is projected to grow at 5% in 2019 and 5.1% in 2020, which is 0.4% and 0.3% lower than projected in April. Nonetheless, Asia still remains the fastest growing major region in the world, accounting for more than 2/3 of global growth. The Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has decided to issue a notice of cancellation of the license issued to the finance company PLC with effect from today to safeguard the interests of the depositors and other creditors. In a statement, the central bank said that its monetary board, having considered the weak financial performances of the finance company, took a number of regulatory action with effect from the 15th of February this year. It adds that although several efforts were made to identify prospective investors and to restructure the company, such efforts have not materialized to a satisfactory level yet, adding that the company is incurring a monthly loss of about 200 million rupees. The central bank says that the deposit issuance and liquidity support scheme will also safeguard the interest of all depositors to a maximum of 600,000 rupees per depositor, which will cover 94% of the finance company depositors in full. And at the Colombo Stock Exchange, the benchmark all-share price index rose 0.14% to 5,883.34, its highest close since the 30th of August this year. Market turnover was about 472 million rupees, well below this year's daily average of about 665 million rupees. Foreign investors, in the meantime, were net sellers of riskier assets for the first time in 4 seasons. They sold about 117.5 million Sri Lankan rupees worth of shares, extending the year-to-date net foreign selling to 3.71 billion rupees of equities. Here's a brief look at how markets performed today.
The secondary market yield curve remained broadly unchanged while overall market witnessed limited activities amidst thin volume. The stock market for the day mixed note, with the market remaining in the positive territory for a 5th session, supported by the price gain made in distilleries and Ceylon cold stores. And turnover recorded a near 2-week low, while crossing took place pertaining in Melstar and HNB contribute only 15% to the turnover. And foreigners were a net seller with a low foreign participation.
Welcome back. In your international news tonight, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Brexit plans saw a bout of highs and lows yesterday, winning his first House of Commons vote and then almost immediately losing his second. British MPs sacked his withdrawal agreement bill 329 to 299, but then rejected his call for a fast-tracking of the debate to meet the October 31st deadline by 322 to 308. After his setback, Premier Johnson announced a pause of the bill in order for him to consult with the European Union on an extension until the end of January 2020. The British Prime Minister has promised to call for an election if the extension is agreed to by the EU and would now step up preparations for a no-deal Brexit. Following the new developments, the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, stated that he will be recommending to the 27 member states that a January extension be granted, thus avoiding a no-deal situation. Essex police in the UK have reported the discovery of 39 bodies inside a lorry container at an industrial park in Eastern Avenue, Grays. The container that had entered the UK via the Holyhead ferry terminal contained victims reportedly from Bulgaria, including 38 adults and one teenager. The lorry driver, a 25-year-old man from Northern Ireland, has been arrested on suspicion of murder.